back, everybody. And if it's your first time tuning in to And Her Name Is, I'm so delighted to have you here. My name is Jenny Moutou, and this podcast is all about redefining leadership. This season, I went out into my network to talk to women from all different backgrounds and professions to get a multicultural perspective on the topic of imposter syndrome. The goal has been to help you discover just how normal this feeling is. And by bringing women from different backgrounds and different conversations together, you could potentially start to hear yourself in some of these women. I wanted to learn about what was their experience of imposter syndrome. What are the conversations that they have in their own mind when this imposter is activated? I wanted to hear about the different circumstances that might activate the imposter for them and to learn about the strategies that they've used to overcome it. And hopefully you're hearing some of these strategies as you're following along in this podcast so that you can implement this into your life too. Today, I am chatting with the founder and creator of Cashflow Queen and Khaki Publishing House. And she is a multi-passionate entrepreneur. She believes you can heal the world through love and wisdom shared in authentic storytelling. And she did exactly that through her podcast and her book. Embarking on her own author journey, she was then inspired to start her own indie publishing company called Kaki Publishing House. I've given you a few clues here. Her name means awesome and abundant energy flow. Isn't that cool? And she certainly lives up to her name, especially in Cashflow Queen, where she teaches women the strategy, mindset, and energy to successfully create money on the US stock market in less than 30 minutes per week. She's a 4-time #1 best-selling international author, and she is featured on numerous podcasts where she talks about unlocking abundance, share trading, money mindset, and energy, self-love, and all things motherhood. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you all the way from Perth, Australia, to Kaki Lee. How has the day been overall?
It's been good. I've had meetings all morning, and then after this, I've got another 3 meetings. Today's just meeting day. I don't know what happened.
Oh, well, I am so delighted that you have, agreed to join us. I'm going to hit you with a barrage of questions, but all, quite safe, and go into any directions or just spaces that you'd like to explore together. But I like to start with a little bit about you, like a little bit about your background. And you live in Perth now. Did you always live there? That kind of thing. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So I was born in Hong Kong, and then my parents moved us over to Perth just before I turned 6. So I've been here for a long time. I'm Aussie through and through.
Yeah.
I'm 42 this year, so everyone knows how old I am.
And if you're not watching, Kaki looks, well in her early 30s, so she's doing great. Maybe a bit younger.
And I just, just typical immigrant, like Hong Kong immigrant, I think. Even my dad was a chef, is a chef, and we came over. He worked in restaurants, opened restaurants, and then I grew up working in a restaurant, my dad's restaurant, and people used to call me by the restaurant name. So it's like, oh, that's Peking Chinese restaurant's daughter. I'm like, hello, my name's Kaki here. So that was me growing up, and my parents were always instilled into me that, we worked hard to come over here. You need to get a university education, just follow the path that I think most of us are taught to follow, get a uni degree, get a job, get married, have kids, pay off the mortgage, and then you can die. Yay.
I think Kiyosaki calls that the 40-40 plan, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was following that plan. I was so good at following that plan because I'm just one of those people that, just follows things and does things. And I became at one point the chief pharmacist at the Perth Children's Hospital.
Right.
And then I had a baby and had a baby, and things just changed after that. Um, I always thought I'll be a pharmacist for the rest of my life. I was a very like corporate girl, like the hospital is my life, that kind of person. I cared so much. I'm just one of those people that care too much about work, and
Mhm.
not in the like I need to climb the ladder kind of care. I'm like, I just care about people and like just being there, making it a better place. That was me. And when I had a baby, I realized I'm like, oh, that was a bit stupid. Like, I'm replaceable. No one really cares when you're gone.
Yeah.
Because I always thought I was like, oh, I'm there doing the good things for the department, but
Yeah.
it no one cares. Like, and they do care, but not in the way that you think you're so self-important kind of care.
Mm.
And it was actually after my second daughter that everything just moved really quickly. It was like I was being led out of my career without me even trying. So from my
Right.
first daughter to my second daughter, it was kind of this exploration of like losing my identity, trying to find it, postnatal depression, all the things, trying to
Oh,
find a way out of being in corporate. And then when my second daughter came, it was just like, okay, I couldn't keep up with everything. I had the calling to become a life coach. In the meantime, when I went on maternity leave, the first day of maternity leave, I decided to do a share trading program, which I bought like a year before she was born. And I still remember being in the hospital, just had my baby, and I'm calling my share trading coach, and he's like, where are you? I'm like, I just popped a baby, I'm in the hospital. He's like, why are you calling me? Like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, the baby's sleeping, I've got nothing to do. But that's the type of person I am, like, very like, type A, overachiever, overgiver, all the things, people pleaser, all the things. And yeah, fast forward to now, like, if you told me when I had my baby what I'll be doing now, I would just be like, no, I hated public speaking. I started a podcast and it got to like top 5% globally ranking. I actually just ended my podcast. But, you know, for someone that hated speaking publicly, that could not, that what if I were to speak publicly, I needed to know what I was saying, to just intuitively asking questions of my guests, and like talking now like this, that would not have been, that was not me, that was definitely not me.
yeah.
And then yeah, now I teach people how to share trade because I learned the program when I went on mat leave, and then Kaki likes doing things Kaki style, so just mix things in. And I realized that it was just a very masculine dominated industry, share trading,
Which one? The share trading. Yeah.
stock market. And it was, I remember like I've had a few coaches since I was first started, and all male, very like, shouty, like male. And I love them and they're great, but there was like, work on your mindset. But they never teach you that part. They teach you the
Mm.
strategy, they don't teach you the mindset, they don't teach you the energy part. And then I just had this epitome, I guess you can say, to combine it all together.
Mm.
And so that's what I do now. I teach women how to make money on the stock market. And then I also went into publishing and became an author. So just following the nudges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interesting that you say following the nudges. I call them following the threads because I have a bit of a sewing, like obsession. And I find that as the threads unravel, you can just pull and pull and pull, and you just keep going for the next one, the next one. I suppose you could, call it breadcrumbs as well,
Mm,
however you
yeah.
analogy. But all right, so you're the founder and creator of Cashflow Queen. And so that's all about teaching women how to trade on the stock market. So, and you mentioned this combination of like, obviously there's skill and knowledge that you need to know and the technical components of doing that, but you also bring in the energy and the mindset. So talk to us a little bit about the combination of all of those three and what you've learned or discovered, you know, about putting this all together.
Yeah. So with my share trading, I always had this thing when I got the calling to be a life coach. I'm like, I want to save the world because, you know, that's what you do when you first become a life coach. And then, and now it was very separate. The two worlds were very separate. I'm like, I'm going to write a share trading program, but I'm going to be a life coach and an energy healer. And then one day it kind of went, I'm like, oh, you actually need to marry these things together. So, I mean, I'm a very logical process kind of person. That's just how I am. So for me, the strategy was easy.
Yeah.
And then when I started playing around with doing Kaki's way, it was like, oh, okay, I can do this, do that. And then I realized like how I was energetically and how my mind was working also need to kind of, what's the word? Align with my strategy. I remember just going into this, you can't be clingy when you're on the share market. So that was one thing that I learned. So I was like, oh, this share is really good. I kept playing with it. And I got really clingy and I was making good money and then I got really clingy. And then one night it just tanked. Like all of a sudden the CEO said something stupid and like the company, I think it dropped like by 2/3. So I remember by this is a very clear example and remembrance for me. It was $24 and it went down to like $8. And I was like, you know, oh my God, what am I going to do?
And so
And
by clinging, you mean like it's a sure thing, you just,
yeah,
you
you
know.
just like you just kind of have this expectation that it will just keep working and like that, you know, that's the thing that's going to make it work, you know, like even with your everyday life. If you cling on to something, it usually runs away. You kind of need to go have that, you know, I want you, but I don't need you kind of energy, right? So it was then going, oh, okay. Getting into that, I'm like, okay. And I mean, I got out of the trade, I actually was able to get it so that I actually pay $0 for it. So, you know, the way that I trade. So anyway, got out of it. It took a little bit of time, but that's okay. And then I had this like winning streak of about 6 months where everything was going well. And I'm like, what was happening? I was just like, oh yeah, it was just flowing. Like, you know, I was just in this really good energy. And then I think it got to a point where I was like getting greedy and obsessed. Like I traded in my sleep one night. That's how obsessed I was. And I woke up going, what did I do? Like I had some memory of me doing it, but like obviously
Oh,
when
you
you're
actually physically got out of bed. It wasn't that you were dreaming or anything like
no,
that.
no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can trade on my phone. So it was on like
Oh, right. Okay.
I turned on my phone and I placed the trade. And obviously when you're half asleep, you probably don't do very good analysis, right? But that was the point of obsession. And I had to kind of remember, like pull away because from that time on, I was like, oh, okay, my trades aren't going really well. I'm I'm just in this really obsessed and greedy, I could say, state of mind. And when you're greedy, it doesn't work either.
Tell me about
You
the
know,
energy of greed. Tell me about that.
it's like, oh, I want to place this trade. I mean, obviously we want to make money on the stock market, but
Yeah.
when it gets to the point of obsession that, you know, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like do this regardless of my beliefs or values, then it doesn't work. So for example, being an ex-pharmacist is really funny. I'm not a big fan of the pharmaceutical industry nowadays, but anyway, you know, not saying that medicine is not good or anything, but you know, just the realities of it all. But there was a particular company that I was like, oh, you know, analysis wise, it looked really good, everything. And I was like, yep, cool, I'm going to go into there. But I really didn't like that company, like really didn't like that company. And of course, I bought into it and I was like, yeah, I just knew I should not have gone in because it just doesn't sit right with my values. My trade obviously didn't work out.
Mm.
So there's a
And what
greed
do you
part.
attribute that to? Like, you know, because there'd be many people who make trades just on paper, right? And they're able to take their emotions, because I have heard that, like in the trade, you just take the emotions right
Yep.
out of it, you know? But you've got the emotions embedded right in there.
Yeah.
And so interesting. I want to just compare those two, if you don't mind, just for a minute, like the juxtaposition between trading with no emotion, you're just technical analysis essentially is what you're doing, right? And then you're placing your trades based on what the results of your analysis are telling you, versus a situation where the analysis is giving you all the green lights, like, go ahead, this is so good, but your body is saying, nah, I don't agree. Values not aligned. So tell me, like, that's fascinating, right? What, you know, what do you take from that? Like,
So for me, what I find is I need to go in neutral, which is taking the emotions out. And
okay.
also, as I still need to invest in companies where I don't have any sort of judgment, I guess, towards a certain industry. So for example, that particular pharmaceutical stock that I invested in, I was like really against what they do. But I invested anyway because I was like, this is looking fantastic. You know, if I got in like even a week before, it would have worked out. But I mean, I don't know that for sure. But it just happened when I'm like, oh, this looks great, I'll go in, that it didn't work. So what I find for me when I tell my clients is like, if you are feeling off, walk away. You know, just disperse your energy, do something to just get rid of that off energy before you go into trading of any kind. So that's my thing. You need to be neutral, and it doesn't mean that like you don't invest if you have like a dislike for a certain company, but you need to be not like where it's totally misaligned, where it doesn't work. And even with trading, like you were talking about how people say take the emotion out of it. And yeah, definitely take the emotion out of it. But what I found is your intuition is something that is really important when you trade. And I can tell you, even for very seasoned investors, like very masculine, like very like logical people that are the really good traders, they will tell you that intuition plays a big part. They might not call it intuition, but you know, they might go, oh, I had a hunch, or like, you know.
Yeah, I think I heard somewhere, I don't know if it was Warren Buffett, but it was somebody big in the investing realm that talked about getting a particular, like they would get feedback in, I think he had a pain in his back or some sort of feedback in his back that would indicate, you know, one way or the other, whether it was a good trade or not.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a book that I read, and the person that wrote it, he's passed away now, but he was one of like a very famous, you know, trader. And he gave an example where he had, you know, a guy who was just very technical, only technical. And he was wondering why he wasn't, you know, making it. You know, he was trading for a hedge fund. So he's like, what is happening? Like he, you know, he's doing really well, but then, you know, somehow some trades don't work. And, you know, he's trying to figure it out. And then he obviously met this, you know, super trader, and he's like, well, you can't just look at the graphs. There are things outside of those graphs that you don't know, right? Because those can be manipulated as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not may be a real picture. It may also not be a real picture. So you kind of need to use that intuition or that hunch to also discern. So that's one thing that I also do as well, whether I go into a trade or not, I kind of check in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, so you're teaching women who have no idea about the stock market or might have had some exposure or whatever, and taking them right through a process.
Yes.
Is that, yeah?
Yeah. All my past clients either have zero or very little knowledge in the stock market, but you know, those who finish my program, they're making money
Yeah.
on, you know, constantly making money.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was your motivation for that? I mean, we've heard your story and, you know, some of the changes that happened in your life to get you to this point, but what's your motivation to share it with others?
I think when I decided to, well, the life coaching, I want to, you know, save the world kind of thing. That was the intention at the beginning. But just seeing the people around me, the women that I'm meeting, they're looking for something where they can do that doesn't take much time. And this is really perfect for them because I'm just sick of seeing women who are relying on their partner, on the government, or, you know, whatever, a job to actually be able to support themselves financially. And, you know, I think when women are empowered, when they have their own finances, it makes a big difference in the relationship dynamics as well, in their relationship. A lot of women, you know, might be in a relationship because financially they feel like they can't go out on their own. And, you know, this is something that can help, you know, set them on their path. And also, I think the other big thing for me, well, there's a few, was the pandemic, just seeing people lose everything because of it, and all the systems that were placed around, you know, who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated, or just people that got sick, even if they, you know, whether they're vaccinated or not, and lost everything because they had to pay the bills for the healthcare. This is someone that I know in America who, you know, America healthcare system is very different to Australia. But after getting
But there are still
COVID,
people dealing with the ramifications of that.
yes,
You know, like we're in
exactly.
small business communities where people are just really wiped out and starting again. And some of
Yeah.
those people are in their 60s, you know, late 60s, some of them are in their 70s. You know, it's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, and it's really sad, and it also made me really angry that, you know, the systems that were put in place did not help the people. And it actually, you know, people that might have been doing really well all of a sudden just lost everything because
Yeah.
they can't run their businesses, or, you know, whatever else it is. So this is another way for people who, you know, might be back in doing their business and, you know, back in the career, being able to work again or whatever. But we can't rely on one source of income. That's something that I think was very evident when that hit. And this is something that they can do without having to, you know, like as coaches, you're always having to put stuff out there, right? You're always constantly creating, doing stuff. So even if you're making money, you are not exchanging time as in hourly rate, but you are putting effort and time into creating, and not knowing whether you will get a return on all the stuff that you put out. Whereas with this, it is like you are making, for like the strategy I teach, you're making money up front. Yes, you have to invest obviously on the stock market, but you're making money on day one. So it's like, I don't need to create anything. I just log into my computer, press a few buttons, do a little bit of research, and then I can make money. So it's
more accessible for people.
more accessible, and it's deprogramming people that they need to work hard and hustle, you know, and do all these things in order to create money. You know, money flows. If you allow it to, it will just come to you.
Yeah. I think, you know, I think for some people listening to this, they would totally agree with you. They know exactly where you're coming from. And I think others listening might be like, no, it doesn't. I work so hard, you know, and as you sort of look out the landscape of what's going on right now, you know, I think there's a lot of people who are working really hard. You know, they're at burnout you know, they've possibly passed burnout, you know, like, and gone over another edge. And there are a lot of people looking for ways to make additional income. And I think this way in particular, you know, like you said, when you launch a business, that's one thing, and you're an expert in whatever you're an expert in. And, you know, but then you have to be a marketer, an IT person, you know, you have to be great at sales, you know, suddenly you've got to do bookkeeping, like, unless you're outsourcing all of that, you know, you have to become pretty masterful at a number of different things, which makes running what you think is a simple business very complicated, you know. And if you're like me and you like to complicate things even more, oh my goodness. So yeah, and so this is a great option. And I think, you know, you and I talked about previously, look, the new face of poverty in Australia is women over 50 who are single, whether that's as a result of divorce or illness or whatever it happens to be, you know. And certainly if I look out in my community, you know, I can see women who are on the brink of that. You know, they're not necessarily homeless right now, but they're on the brink of that. And I think that there would be many families, many people across the community post-COVID who are in that position, you know, one paycheck away, two paychecks away from finding themselves in that position. And so that idea of multiple streams of income, you know, is something that is being considered, I think, by more and more people. But it's just which form, because if I don't know anything about the stock market, you know, am I going to end up losing more? Isn't it just like betting? Like, how much skill is really involved here, you know? And how do I make sure that, you know, I'm not going to lose more than I can afford to lose, you know?
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing, is that you can choose how much you are willing to lose. My thing is that you don't invest anything that you're not willing to lose. That's the first rule. But if you are going, okay, I'm just going to do this because like I can see the potential, it will hurt me if I, you know, lose that $2,000, but at least, you know, this can help. If this can help me build, then I'd rather take that risk than have that, you know, $2,000 sit there. So what I teach is like, okay, not only do you make money on the day one, but you can protect, you know, your capital up to 90%, 95% if you want. Obviously, the returns will be smaller because you're buying a little bit of insurance, but it also means that you're not going to lose all your money, you know, if should things go to shit.
And so and then are these long-term trades or short trades? Like, are you day trading essentially? How does this work?
So I teach something called covered calls. It's not day trading. I'm a mom to 2 kids. I run multiple businesses. I just don't have time to sit there and press refresh, like, and sit in front of the computer when the stock market's open. And I play on the US stock market. So, I mean, that would be just like crazy hours. So what I teach is something called covered calls. I probably place a trade or trades every 2 to 4 weeks. That's usually my turnaround time. So I'll place my trade on day one, make my money up front. And then say if it's a 2-week contract, then in 2 weeks, you know, I get all my money back from my stocks, and then I place another trade. So the in-between time, I just monitor how my stock's doing and see if I need to implement any risk protection or strategies in between. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's totally doable, right? For anybody and everybody who wants to get involved.
Yeah.
So we're going to drop some links and some ways for people to get in touch with you about that if they're interested in the show notes. But moving along, you're also the founder of Kaki Publishing. So you're an author.
I'm
a
an
woman
author.
of many talents. I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I had a podcast called The Awakened Feminine. You can still listen to it, even though, you know, I'm not actually continuing with the podcast anymore. But through my podcast, I met a publisher, and it was the first time I ever met a publisher, and we had a conversation. And the next morning after I interviewed her, she sent me an email and said, "Oh, I had a really good time. That was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I'd love to invite you to be part of this multi-author book that I'm creating." No idea what a multi-author book is, no idea what being an author meant, but I could feel the tingles in my body going like crazy. And I'm like, yeah, this is like, and the funny thing is that I met her end of the year. I think it was 2021, maybe around there. But I remember like beginning of the year, like all throughout the year, I just kept getting, you need to start writing. You need to go back to write. I love writing. So it's like, you need to write, you need to write. And I'm like, don't have time for that, pushing it away. And it just made me laugh when I got that email and it was like the universe going, here, have something on a silver platter delivered to you so that you can freaking write. So I did that book. It's called Uncensored, Untamed, Unleash. And I wrote about some of the major things that happened in my life and how I got through it and what I did. So there were snippets. And through that book, I met another publisher and she's like, "Oh, you teach share trading. I'm creating this book called Prosperity Codes. Would you like to be part of it?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure." So within 6 months, I was into multi-author books.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's just like when it rains, it pours, right?
And let's recap. You do have 2 small kids, right?
I do have 2 small kids. They somehow fit into the mix. So when I started my podcast, my youngest had just turned 1.
Right. Wow.
And I was questioning my life choices at that time. Like, what am I doing here? Like, anyway, yeah, people always go, how? I'm like, I don't know. Somehow it just kind of all fits in and just works.
Yeah.
And then I had a calling to create my own multi-author book, having never done one myself before, obviously, because I was just an author in the other ones. So I partnered with the first publisher I met, and she helped me create my own multi-author book called The Awakened Feminine. And then whilst I was doing The Awakened Feminine, I had a book title drop in called Badass Asian Women. And I'm going, I don't have time for this. Really, I'm trying to get the authors for this book. And it just kept coming. You know, when things, they just keep
I
coming.
do.
I'm like, bye, see you later. Not ready for this. Who am I to do this? And so then I'm like, okay, right, okay, I'll do it. And then I got, you need to start your own publishing house. I was going, right. So that's how my publishing house was birthed, because of Badass Asian Women. But, there was a whole lot of imposter syndrome going on there, because it was like, well, who am I to say I'm badass and to represent Asian women? Is like, this is way too big. That's why I kept saying no to it, but it won't leave me alone. So then I published it, and the responses we've been getting for the book have been really amazing, not just from our Asian counterparts, but also from, the wider community who have read and go, wow, this is not just for Asian women. Like, I see myself in that, regardless of what race or ethnicity, I can't get the word out, but you know what I mean.
We know what you mean. Ethnicity, yes.
Yeah. So it's been a fabulous journey, and just, it's been great. Yeah.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, because as soon as you went, who am I? Actually, yep, I'm gonna write that down. Which is a classic voice of the imposter, right? Like, to be able to hear that that's going on. And I've been having some in-depth conversations today around the imposter, because for me, what I notice for myself is the more you look at something, sometimes the harder it becomes to see it. And then suddenly someone's like, Jenny, do you not see that the imposter is right there? I'm like, yeah, okay, now that you mentioned it.
Yes. I mean, even for the share trading, for me, there was massive imposter syndrome that I was working through, and really recently finally went, you know what, just need to let that go. Bye.
So do you mind if we delve a little bit around that? Because, you know, for anyone who's listening, you know, and I'm obviously hearing this for the first time, you're a pharmacist and then you go into shared trading and then you're becoming a life coach and you're an author and a publisher. And it's like, does this woman know no end? Like, how does she do it all? But of course, you know, in the initial studies of imposter way back in the 70s or whatever, that they singled out high performing women, and we know that it's not just high performing women who experience this, right? But you know, you're the textbook definition. Sorry, Kaki.
Okay.
There's nothing textbook about you. I'll take that back. But talk to us about, like, bring us into the pit of what that's like, because as I said, like, for people on this journey, you know, and it doesn't matter how accomplished you are, and for you to be able to share this, you know, it's so wonderful, I think, for people to be able to hear this, you know. I just want to say, just side note, like, I'm hearing people who are really accomplished talking about how much fear they're feeling about doing different things or speaking out about different matters, you know, with the way things are going in the world right now, but they're feeling compelled to continue to do that in spite of their fear. And obviously something has compelled you forward in spite of that imposter. So, you know, just talk to us about how do you experience the imposter? Like, what were you noticing for yourself?
There's so many examples, and I feel like I want to go into like corporate as well, because there'll probably be people in jobs that feel like they're an imposter. So how I became a chief pharmacist is a story that's just like, people would be like, what? So my substantive role in the hospital is a junior pharmacist, but that probably was for the first maybe 1 or 2 years in the hospital. And then I've always just acted in high positions. But my substantive was always junior. And then I got interviewed to become the deputy chief pharmacist. And people were like, you're jumping from like a level 1 to a level 4. But I got the job because I'm capable. And I'm not saying that in an egoic way, but it's just,
I got it.
That's just me.
Just owning it.
And yeah. And I remember during the interview for deputy chief, the exec director asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And I'm like, you know, I was like, I want to be the chief pharmacist. Within 6 months, my chief pharmacist decided that he was going to quit.
Wow.
And he said, because I was pregnant at that time, I just found out I was pregnant. And he's like, oh, I can get someone to, you know, come into the role if you want, because you're pregnant and, you know, you probably go, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, who else is there? Like, just not saying that my staff aren't good or there's no one good out there, but to have to teach them everything again, I'm like, I'll just step into it. And it's like, for someone that's like, how the hell am I going to be a chief pharmacist when I just like probably done the deputy chief for 6 months? And at that time going, how the hell am I going to be a deputy chief when, you know, I've never acted in that position even before? Like, senior positions, yes, but not the deputy chief. But I just slotted in, just got things done, changed things. The morale was really bad at that time. So I was the morale boost coming in as a deputy chief and then as the chief pharmacist. But it was interesting in that I couldn't see it, but the people around me kept telling me like that they could see it. My boss, that I was working in a different department from the pharmacy when I got deputy chief, and my boss is like, you need to go down there, Khaki, and fix that department. And I'm going, I don't know how, you know, like the imposter, like who the hell am I to be able to do something like that? But when you have people that believe in you, and you know in your gut whether you are right or, you know, good, doing the job, able to do the job as well. So I went and I just did it, and until I had to give birth the first time. And the chief pharmacist that actually came in, I mean, I was gonna like go bye, you know, in 2 weeks. He's like, can you please just stay? And then coming back into work, it was again like I got asked to come back to work early
Yeah.
and to do like a project for the new hospital. We were building a new children's hospital. And I'm going, I have no clue about this project. We're talking about unit dose robots, like completely new technology in Australia for a hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But again, is that how the hell am I going to do this when I have zero knowledge right now? But you just kind of go, okay, well, I've done hard things before. I'll do it. And, you know, I created this report, and I think they were still using it when after I finished the project and left. But it's just constantly reminding yourself that you've done hard things before, like, and you can learn new skills. Like I said, I had zero knowledge about technology, robotic technology for a pharmacy, but I was able to learn obviously a lot in the time I was doing the project. And then fast forward to like share trading. Okay, who the hell am I to teach share trading? I'm a little short Asian woman, right? You know, I was a pharmacist. I didn't even like have a background in, share trading or, stock market. I do have a master's of accounting degree, so there is some finance there. But you're like, who the hell am I to do that? And, again, it comes down to the people that were able to see me and what I can do. So coaches, friends going, Kaki, like, you're making money. You replaced your 6-figure chief pharmacist income share trading. Granted, I had a bit more capital to play with, but, regardless, I was able to replace my income. But you kind of go, and then I'm like, oh, okay. So I started teaching this share trading. And then pandemic hit, shit hits the fan. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? I said it twice now.
You can swear.
Okay. And, again, not on the share market, but I lost a lot of money through different means, real estate, bad investments in other things. And I had to pull money out of different investments and things like that. And it was just a complete shit show, right? And I lost confidence. I'm like, who am I going to teach? Like, how can I teach people when I've experiencing this like crazy like money shit show that I did not see coming? So then it was like,
it's
okay.
funny you say that. I'm just going to pause you there because sometimes and look, I could be hallucinating, right? And I take that point. But sometimes I think, sometimes you watch men in those same situations, right? And I've seen this when I taught at university, I saw this in a different setting. So I would see young women getting feedback from an employer while they're on work experience kind of set up. And the feedback was maybe a little bit critical, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they would internalize that and they would make it mean something about themselves. And you would watch their self-esteem just get totally trampled and destroyed. And then my role would become pastoral care and trying to build them back up again so that they didn't completely botch the experience and rob themselves of what's available inside of that experience. And I would watch the guys get this feedback from the employer and just cop it on the chin and keep going, and so come to your example and I wonder how many women struggle with that same thing, and I'm speaking, myself in that same category where we've already proven fitness, we've already proven our ability to do something, and we have a setback and we just write ourselves off. And why are we so quick to just write ourselves off? And I mean, it's I can laugh about it, but I'm emotional about it. Like I'm just passionate that we stop doing that. Like, just stop it. You know, it's not working for anyone, least of all you, but and me. You know, like, but it's just, it is fascinating. I do find it fascinating. You know, like if you can take a little bit of a step back and look at yourself and see, oh my gosh, that we are our, and I speak, you know, again, I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone here, our worst or our most harshest critic, you know? And yeah, I'm sorry, like I went off in a bit, but
Oh,
yeah, I am very passionate about that because I feel like there's so many women, particularly women, because that's the sort of communities I'm in, who have so much to give and have just written themselves off, you know, and they're stuck, you know, and there's this opportunity to, this is why this podcast exists, to overcome that, to find ways and to listen to other people's journeys about what's actually happened for them and how in spite of that they've found a way, you know.
yeah.
So thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. I know I love hearing it's a conversation. I know you're asking me questions, but I want to hear your perspective as well as a guest. You know, but for me, the imposter syndrome, like it's just remembering that no one can take away your skills. They can take away all your money, all your assets, everything, but they can't take away from you your knowledge and your skills, your wisdom, and also your relationships. If you have those things, you can start again and again and again
Mm,
and build and build and build. But you need to be able to take that first step and get over yourself. And it's funny what you say about men taking things completely different, because you know, after that, I'm like, you know, going, it's all my fault, you know, and taking so much time to kind of get over myself. And now to actually come out on the other side going, hey, I know my stuff. I'm going to teach it because I really believe in it. Because I have the skills. I can teach this with my eyes closed, yet I'm too scared to because of what's happened to me. But, you know, the skills,
yes.
right? The strategy works. I have the skills to teach it. So why the hell am I so scared, right? It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
I have $0 to my name, but I can actually do it, then I can teach people how to do it. My husband, on the other hand, he's just like, oh yeah, that happened. Right. We'll just keep going. And I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Right. It just, yeah, that's why he's my rock. You know, he's just so, he's just like, oh yeah, cool. Right. That shit happened. We just move on. You know, he doesn't
Next.
think about it or stew on it or go, it's my fault. He's just, yeah, it's very
But you
different.
know what? Like, I know for myself, looking back in the past, even things like relationships, right? So where else is this happening? I'm not saying this for you, but I'm
Mm.
just saying in general, like when that, you know, those things happen with the money and you're finding yourselves in the position that you're in, and it's all my fault. Like, where else is that showing up? And in particular, is that showing up in your relationships? Because if it is, whether it's your kids, your family, you know, your partner, whatever it is, it's like, if that's my fault, if it's all on me, then the first instinct I have is to contract and move myself away from you. And suddenly any level of relatedness or relationship, you know, is impacted by that. Just like when you're like, this is all my fault. Is your business happening? No. Are you trading? No. Are you teaching? No. Are you sharing your gifts? No. Like, you know, like, and just to be able to get shit, that's what happens, you know, like that's where we stop. And the more cognizant you can get of where that stopping point is, the more you can start to go make that new choice, like you're saying, and you know, get over yourself essentially, you know. But isn't that fascinating?
That's so fascinating how much obstacles we put in front of ourselves. It's not even someone putting it out that you can go, oh, so and so put that obstacle in front of me. It's actually all you. And it's just recognizing it. I think most people don't
Mm,
recognize it, and they, like you say, they replay the same patterns, whether it's in relationships or money or, you know, whatever, or multiple things. But until you recognize it and actually willing to actually make changes, it's going to keep being the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you like, what were the strategies that you used to start to recognize it for yourself?
Yeah. It took a while for me, and it doesn't have to. I want to like premise that for everyone. Things
Yeah.
can change like that. It's just how willing you are to let it go.
Yeah.
For me, there were lots of different layers, but it is recognizing it and seeing it and going, is it true? Because half the
Mm.
stuff you tell yourself is not true.
Yeah.
It's just keeping you safe so that,
Yeah.
you know, because also, we've got our ego, and our ego is quite happy to be comfortable in the discomfort because that's, easier than actually having to learn a new skill, take on new challenges, and, do new things and do hard things. So it's like, well, yeah, you're having a shit life right now, but it's actually quite easy for me to just, let you continue
It's
in,
familiar. It's
stirring in
familiar.
your own stuff, right? But so it's kind of going, okay, I don't want to do that. And ego, you just need to like move out of the way and let me step up and do the things. And you are helping me, because what you tell the ego will actually keep helping you, right? Because the ego is just like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Okay, don't get out of bed.
Yeah.
So it will just feed on what you actually want. So
Yeah.
in a way, you actually want to just stay small because it's scary. So it's you going, okay, I don't want to stay small anymore. I want to play big. And then you can go, okay, ego, feed me, feed me all the stuff that will help me, put myself out there.
Yeah. And I want to stress here that that's not a decision you make once. Like,
Oh,
you didn't get to be the
no.
way that you are because of one decision. Like there were multiple decisions, many occasions. And I think like it's important to know that those are sometimes they can be a minute by minute decision, or it's things that you've got to do every single day. And there's a vigilance that's required around your own thinking processes and how you're thinking, like to be able to start to, I like to use the word arrest, like arrest those thoughts, and redirect them, like you said. So being able to say, oh, is this true? Or overriding, like my coach says, no, I don't believe that anymore. I believe, and then she'll affirm what she actually believes instead, So you talked before about that people, and they have this story that, earning money is hard work, and if they didn't do the hard work, then maybe they don't deserve that money, and so there is no other possibility for them to earn money than inside of the context that it is hard work, right? So if you're like, you know what, I don't believe that anymore. I believe that earning money can be easy, that money flows to me easily. And yes, there's this congruence, you use the word alignment, I use the word congruence, that you have to look for. Is your mind, is your body, is your soul, is everything aligned with that belief? And if there's a little niggle somewhere, then that tells you, you know what? I got some feedback about a limiting belief in my body or in my system or in somewhere. And so now I need to address that. What's missing? Maybe I haven't created an image of what my success would actually look like. So when I say that money flows to me easily, my bullshit meter goes off and I get this feedback in my body. But when I look, it's not because I don't have the resources, the capability, the knowledge, the blah, blah, blah. It's because I didn't actually create what success looks like for me. So when I have all of this money that I pretend that I want, I need to understand, what does that actually look like? And how am I living my life? And what am I doing on a daily basis? And how did I actually get this money? And just, it's costing you is a bit of imagination time, really, to sit there and see it in your mind's eye about what does this actually look like,
Yeah.
But we miss these things, and because they're not necessarily taught either. Like people don't, there's not enough, particularly new age stuff. I'm going to say that some of the modern new age stuff, I actually think it confuses people more. I think it introduces language that's unnecessary and convoluted. But if you go back to some of the 1920s, 1950s kind of new age stuff, it's just a lot more clear, you know, and you can start to pull that out. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with the languaging of things, because sometimes I'm like, what are they saying? I don't understand. But yeah, the other thing is for me is really letting go and surrendering and getting clear on whether what you want to do is actually what you want to do. We are very good
Mm,
at comparing ourselves to other people
mm,
and wanting things because other people want it. So
yeah.
are you chasing something and it's not working because it's actually you really don't care at all, but all your friends have it or want it, so you're like, yeah, I want to go after that too. So
Yeah.
it's really, for me, really tuning in and getting clear what it is you want, where you're going, and then surrendering and letting go of all the shoulds that you place on yourself, and then moving on. And like you said, it's not a let's make a decision and then it's done. It's constantly choosing yourself, constantly choosing what yourself, as in the decisions and the things that your soul wants you to do, not what other people want you to do. Because when you are choosing that, you're not choosing yourself. It's just a constant second by second, like you said, even choosing yourself all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think we spoke before, but one of the things that I create is the map of potential. And, you know, it's very easy, like the circle, and inside the circle is everything you know, you're comfortable, it's familiar. Outside are the things that you don't know, they're uncomfortable, they're not familiar. And even that simple example of the alarm goes off and, you know, you've committed to going to the gym and you're in bed and you're at the edge of your circle right there, right? So you're either going to move into your potential, which is the unknown, or you're going to stay in what you know. And if you're in that pattern, because it took me ages to figure out that pattern, you know, I didn't even know there were patterns. And then suddenly, like, it dawned on me there's these patterns, and then I understood stopping strategies, and then I put it all together and I realized, so you're in, you know, your eyes are closed, you're making that decision about whether you're going to get out of bed in the morning or not. And you know already, when you make that decision not to get out of bed, not to go to the gym, you're going to have those same predictable thoughts, those same predictable emotions, those same predictable outcomes all day, every day, you
Yeah.
know? And so when
It-
you're at that edge and you're saying, choose you, you might think that staying in bed is about choosing you, because your subconscious mind, I don't like that term about keeping safe. I know everybody uses it.
Mm,
I think it's actually destructive,
mm.
you know, like it's not keeping you safe. We all know that.
Yeah.
It's actually keeping you stuck,
Yeah.
you know? And so when you're at that edge and you're like, you're choosing you, you're choosing a future you that you're becoming, that you're moving to. And you're saying that no matter how uncomfortable it is, I choose me because I'm worth it. I choose me because I have something to give. I choose me because there are people I need to serve. And I think what makes that choice easier, whether it's going to the gym, doing what you do in your life, you know, for work or whatever, is having some kind of purpose or meaning or vision, something that's calling you to be bigger than yourself, to serve more than just yourself, you know, because that, I think that's the game changer, is finding what that is, you know, and requires you to like to tune in and to be willing to create that vision, you
Yeah.
know?
I really believe the people that come here and go, I'm here to serve, they have a purpose. And that's why, people like yourself, who, like, I want to do this because of XYZ. So there's a reason for it.
Mm,
Whereas if you think about in a workplace, generally people are like, oh, I'm here because I need to make money so that I can buy, for, you know, afford to, you know, live. And yes, of course, we all need food to buy food and all that, but it's not a very fulfilling, you know,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just here because I have to. It's
Yeah.
not because you want to. And there's a very different energy around how you live your life in that way. Or even if you don't enjoy your work, like what are the things that bring you joy, you know, outside
Mm.
of work? There are people that are just like, oh yeah, I have to work because I have to work. But then they take all that negative energy they have around work and take that home with them. And they're just constantly in this negativity, and it doesn't
Mm.
serve any purpose for them. So
Yeah.
it's recognizing those as well. And again, you're not choosing yourself when you're in that, you know, negative slump.
No. So, you know, and people say, well, I have to work and I have to pay the bills and I have to do these things. But why? Like, you know, we started this beginning of this conversation about the 40/40 plan, and that people have knowingly, unknowingly, whatever, subscribed to this 40/40 plan. And I guess what this conversation is pointing out is that there are other ways to make money. There are other ways to express who you are in the world, and that it's safe to do that. You know, like we live in a world where anything is possible, and maybe that's overwhelming enough for people, you know, to keep them where they are. But that is what's available.
Yeah.
You know, so how, like, you know, you're in this situations that you've talked about. You're really accomplished. You know, you've had these amazing opportunities. How did you go about? Were they just baby steps in terms of you just making one choice and then the next choice, or how did that work out for you?
It really is just making the decision to do it and then just taking one step at a time. When you want to take leaps and bounds, for me anyway, it's not for everyone, but I get overwhelmed. My body, like, I took a bit of hibernation time last year, and I realized how tense my body is. Like, I'm like, I'm not stressed, but my body is telling me completely different story. Like, I remember going to the park and my girlfriend was like, you know, we were talking and she just started brushing my toes. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, your toes are like, you know, like claws. And because I was so tense, and I'm just having a conversation with her in the park, you know, and I didn't feel stressed, but my body is just constantly in this state of stress. So it's really for people to learn to just decondition. I totally forgot what your question was, but anyway, I don't know what my point is.
Your strategy is to start to, you know, it's almost like a hook, right? I like to talk about it like it's a hook, and it's got its hook in you. So how do you start to and you know, you use the claws for your toes, which I think is really fitting, but how do you start to unhook from those claws?
Yeah. And is always awareness, is always coming back to awareness, because without awareness, you're not going to unhook anything,
So
right?
how do
But
you get the awareness,
you
Kaki?
need
How
to,
do you do that?
oh, you either get hit by the universe, like whacked across the head 10 million times, or
Uh-huh.
you start tuning into yourself, like
Okay,
really
so what does
start
that
listening.
mean? What does that mean?
Taking time out. We're just always so busy. Like, you know, everyone's just so busy running around, school runs, you know, going to work. There is no time to even listen to your inner voice. And we
Yeah.
also don't allow ourselves to listen to our inner voice. People are scared to have
Yeah.
1 minute by themselves. They want to
Yeah.
fill every single pocket of the day with something,
Yeah.
even if it's busy work that, you know, they don't need to do.
Or their
So
phone
it's,
and scrolling and
yeah, yeah, it's really coming back to just taking a breath and allowing your thoughts to come to you. It's allowing the thoughts, because you're not listening to your thoughts right now. Like when you're busy all the time, because all you're thinking are all the day-to-day stuff. Your thoughts are just day-to-day stuff. There's no really inner dialogue or, you know, really inner anything for you. So when you take that breath, when you actually sit down and take like 2 minutes, okay, 2 minutes, and just see what comes up. What are the thoughts that come up? And then going, oh, oh, I'm thinking that. Am I pissed off at that person? Oh, do I feel like that about myself? That's
Mm,
when you start building that awareness. And then you start seeing it without actually having to be with yourself and being that. But you still need that time. You always need that time just to take a breath
mm,
and stop and ask. That's what I do now. I'm like, okay, is this for me? Yes, no, kind of just take that time, take a breath and kind of tune in and get an answer. Maybe the answer's not right, I don't know, inverted commas. But at that particular point, if that's what's come through, trust it. That's the other thing. Trust
mm,
that whatever answers you get is what you're meant to get right now.
mm.
And coming back to your story of you like sewing and threading, I'll tell you a funny story and I think you will like it. So when I was getting authors for the Awakened Feminine, I got to a point where I'm like, why am I not getting people that are interested? So I started doing a trust experiment. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ask in the morning, what's the most fun way for me to, get authors into the book? And one morning I got sew. And I'm like, okay, right. I went to Kmart and bought all these sewing kits and I just sewed the whole day. I kid you not, I just sewed.
Okay,
That's
you know
all
how
I
to
did.
sew already?
Just like cross stitching, embroidery
Okay.
type things, not like proper sewing. I don't know how to do that, but cross stitching. So I was just like doing a cross stitch kit the whole day. And then I kid you not, that night I got a message from a lady that I did not know. She messaged me and she's like, I'm answering your call about your book. I'd like to find out more.
Yeah.
She didn't sign up, but the thing is like I was in a drought. And for me to just answer and trust,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone actually randomly talk to me and go, oh, I'm answering your call, is like, this shit works.
It does.
Right? It makes no sense. Like, how the hell are you going to get someone? Should I be putting more stuff on social media or doing
The
more stuff?
doing, the doing.
But no,
Yes.
I just had to sew. And then after that, it was, when you start trusting, it's like just having the time for those thoughts to come through and trusting that the answers you get are real. And that
Mm,
builds your intuition, your awareness. And that's how you start getting out of the imposter syndrome and all the fears and all those things. Because when you realize that you have all the answers within and
yeah.
that you're the person that's blocking everything that you want, then you'll be scared not to listen to your intuition,
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to say a couple of things on that. So just in terms of getting those answers, you know, the next stopping point that I found for myself is that then the comparison, because I get the answers, I know what to do. And then I look out at the world and I compare myself to the worst possible example. Right? So I'm going to find the most successful person I know. I'm going to find the richest person I know. I'm going to find whatever is going to, like, and blaring comparison to where I think I am and where I think this person is, which is obviously way, way up on this pedestal. And then that enables me to stay stuck, like, and then the self-doubt comes in. So you want to talk about patterns, like the self-doubt comes in, and then I start talking myself out of it. And then I pretend like I'm confused. And then I pretend like I don't know what to do. And then I pretend like I'm frustrated. And then I pretend like I don't know what the answer is. Like it just keeps going and going, going. And in the end, it's like I've lost days, months, in some cases, years, in the past, just because of that. Like, it's so subtle though. Like, I want people to know this. Like, it's so, so, so subtle, and so unless you start to unpack these patterns for yourself. And, you know, I take people through a process where we physically write it down, because when you can actually see, oh, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, like, you know, you can connect to that, right? Because then you start to feel that in your body. You're like, far out.
What am I doing?
I'm proud of myself here, you know. But yeah, and the answers, you know, like the answers always come. They just don't come in the way that you would expect them to. And they sometimes will challenge you to have faith and to listen and to follow through without any evidence that the answer is the right answer. You know, and so you've got to be able to give up that it should, there's that word again, look this way, come from this person, come in this packaging, be this size, you know, and just give that up. And just like, right, this is the question I have. Sometimes I'll ask a random question, and it's like I haven't even really formed the thought fully in my mind, you know, like it's just, it's in my body. Like these are the questions that are coming to the surface. And then I'll watch something random, you know, on TV, like a Netflix show or something, or I'll have a conversation with somebody, or I'll hear something in passing, like even somebody passing me, you know, like, and they won't be talking to me, but that message is mine. You know, there's my answer. I got it. Excellent. That's the breadcrumb. That's the thread. That's, what did you call it? The
Nudges.
The nudges. That's the nudge.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my most, you know, horrible places of despair with this imposter syndrome, like those nudges, those threads, you know, there's what keeps me going. It's like, okay, that's the validation. Keep going, you know, like jump on that momentum. I will share a poem in the show notes, you know, but I wrote this poem while I was in Kununurra. So for those of you who don't know, I left Perth, drove to Darwin during COVID. Took me 3 months, and I just took my time. And I got to Kununurra, and I was like, I knew within a couple of days I was going to be there for a month, even though that hadn't been the plan. And I started to think, like, if God had a plan for my life, would he give me this plan and just say, here, Jenny, here's the plan. Like, you can have it all. Like, everything is listed in here. Or would he give it to me in like bite-sized pieces, you know? Because the reality is, if he gave me that plan and I, you know, all at once, I'd be so overwhelmed, I wouldn't do anything. It's bad enough I get the pieces and I still don't do anything. But those pieces are like the little tests, you know, or the little, and they are tests of faith, you know, because as you said, you've got to act on them. You've got to do stuff sometimes that makes no sense at all, that contravenes everything that the evidence suggests. You know, it's a bit like the reverse of your trading, right? Like, you know, sometimes you're going to have everything looks good on paper and the trade is a dud, and vice versa. Nothing looked good on paper, but your intuition's like, you got to do this.
Yeah.
But when you have that connection, you know, and I'm being humorous, but when you can get rid of all the crap that's inside of you, like really get rid of that, you create this channel that's clear. And the minute it's not clear because you've had that thought or you've had this emotion or whatever has come into the channel, you can start to become aware of it a lot quicker, you know, but you've got to keep clearing. You've got to keep clearing. Like I used to be under the illusion that there was one silver bullet. I could do this one program. It's Anthony Robbins, whatever it happens to be, and I'm going to be fixed and I'm going to be brilliant. And, you know, obviously that's not the case, because you have, you know, significant emotional events that bring up new things. There's new challenges, you know, you get activated by different things. You get, you know, all sorts of things going on. So, and you're evolving as a human being. And through that evolution, like more things are coming to the surface, more things need to be purged, more things need to be dealt with and taken out. But the opportunity is this channel of just clear channel connection. And when you can cultivate, like I cultivate that by going for a walk at 4 o'clock, you know, every afternoon. I just do my walk. Sometimes I talk to people. Sometimes it's just, I just walk, you know, and then I'll stuff just floats. It's like when people get in the shower or on the toilet, and that's when their ideas start going. So it is important to listen. It is important to act on that listening as well, and not just you need to move forward. You need to take action, you know, and sometimes in blind faith or in spite of like all of those fears and doubts and mindful of the comparisons.
Yeah. And listening to your body is the other thing. Your body tells you the answer. If it's a no, you feel it, you know it. But we're not taught to listen to our bodies. Like, you know, you mentioned before, like burnout, people that are on the verge of burnout, they're not listening to their body,
No.
you know, to stop, because they're thinking about all the other things that can happen if they stop. Oh, where will my money come from? You know, all the busy things. But if you think about it, like if you burn out and you're out of action, nothing's going to work.
Yeah.
So what is the difference? Why don't you just take that time off and, you know, fix yourself, and then get back on, and, you know, things will flow better because you're in a better state of mind and all those things. But I totally understand how hard it is. Like, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's really important to listen to your body, because your body holds all the wisdom.
Yeah. And look, you know, I used to, like I said, I do the walks, and sometimes even, you know, I'm so like caught up in what I'm doing, and I'm watching outside and it's getting darker and it's getting darker. And I'm like, the sunlight is going. And you know, and sometimes I will miss it, you know, I'll miss that walk. And I don't feel good about it. You know, like at the end of the day, the world is not going to end if I take a 1 hour walk, you know, and like the world, you know, I know this place, right? I used to sit at my desk and hold my pee for ages, you know, because I can't leave the desk right now. And then just completely ignore your biology, whether it's food, whatever, right? And people, we do, because why? Like, what's going to happen if you do this? And just take a minute, take a breath, you know, go for a walk, get some sun on your face, you know? But we get into this compulsive kind of place. But you know, how do you take time out for yourself?
I
How
like
do you
going.
detach from all of that?
Oh, it's detaching. It's right now, like lately, because I just relaunched my share trading program. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you talked about detaching from the outcome or expectations, this has been a real test for me, because, you know, you put something out and you want like everyone to jump on and sign up, right? But what happens if no one signs up? No one's going to die. You're okay. You put it out again another time. So it's really about catching yourself and pushing it aside. I tend to like journal. I do like journaling in the morning. I take, you know, where I can, I take about 10 minutes just to kind of sit there and do nothing. I like going to my infrared saunas or going for a float. They're the times that, you know, I get a lot of things. Like, you know, like when you say you're in the shower, you're on the toilet, you're relaxed. That's when things come, is when you're like so tense that, you know, nothing's going to come. So they're the ways that I tend to relax. When I play with my kids and we're actually fully playing and they're not just like, you know, getting angry at each other, that's relaxing. But most of the time it ends up getting angry at each other, so the relaxation's gone.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Wait, they're still young enough that you could distract them with something. Oh, look, what's over there?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the
But I
older
guess they
ones,
remember.
yeah, she's 9, so she's a bit smarter now. The young one, I can still go squirrel, and she'll be like, "What?"
Oh dear. Oh, wow. Kaki, thank you. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions just in regards to like any books that you could recommend that people could potentially tune into or pick up. What is there anything that in your collection that you think really helped you along in this journey?
There's so the book that really started my whole, I don't know, spiritual journey, which has played a big part for me, like with letting go, imposter syndrome, all those things, is Gabrielle Bernstein's Super Attractor. That,
Okay.
yeah, that one I found for me was like life-changing because it started
Yeah.
me with my connection. But I really like Marie Forleo's Everything is Figure Outable,
Oh, yeah.
which I think is really fit for our conversation today as well. But I find her quite funny, and she's just she's logical, but she's spiritual, and everything is figure outable. We just need to let go of all the shoulds and all the expectations.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing so amazingly as you do. And we would love to share the links for your share trading, and obviously links for people to get in touch with you as well. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's been a pleasure.
And for the
Okay.
team. So we just kind of flowed into that. I usually do an intro off camera anyway,
Yeah.
to let people know. But that was amazing. Thank you.
Oh,
I
thank
got so
you.
much out of that. I love your energy. I love your insights, and what you're all about. So, and I hope that women will come in and
I've
be
had
part of
two.
it,
I've had
you
two
know.
come in.
Have
I
you?
mean, yeah, I only put out the post, I think last Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
And yes, I've got two come in, and I've got another few that are coming in. So I'm excited about that.
Okay. When is it starting?
8th of August is when it's starting.
The
So I've
8th
got
of
2
August.
weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you send me the link?
Yeah.
And I will, let me just take a picture. Let's see. I'm terrible at selfies, by the way.
I can take it.
Are you gonna, all right, you take it and
And I'll send it.
send it to me.
Let me move my mic a bit. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let me
Thank
check.
you. I'll post it up because
Okay, let's take one more. I think both our eyes were kind of closed. So,
right.
okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's better. Yep.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll post it up because the LinkedIn is getting quite a bit of traction at the moment. Because it went live with the podcast and what have you. So
yep.
yeah. So I'll let people know that, we had a chat today, that'll come out in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime,
Yeah. Thank
connect
you.
with you. That's all
Yeah.
right. And you're connecting up with, or you're hooking up with Warren at some point? Meeting
Yes,
up?
we're meeting up on Monday. So
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, that's good.
thank you
He's
for
an
the
interesting
connection.
character. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all right. If
I
you get
think
a chance
I've
to,
seen him before. I don't know. I'm
have you?
sure I've seen him somewhere before. I don't know why. He looks familiar.
He's been around a long time.
Hmm.
If you get a chance to get on his show, would be a good idea to do that.
Hmm.
Because you're going to reach another community of people who are looking for something, and particularly his community is very aligned with that as well. What about other speaking opportunities?
I haven't really had a look yet, so yeah.
Okay.
I know I need to start looking, but right now I'm just like, trying to get everything sorted for my program.
All right. Well, I don't want to overwhelm you, but there is one guy over in Melbourne who could be quite good. So
Okay.
could connect you with him,
Yeah.
Prosper. Miss?
Yeah. Oh, that'll be
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. Is there anything
That's
I
all
can
right.
do to
I
support
think
you?
we need to support each other in this. Like I really feel like, I mean, the whole She Leadership was about creating an ecosystem of women helping women.
Yeah.
And I really feel drawn to that, So yeah, I mean, I'm looking for audiences that I can contribute to and share with.
Yeah.
And I want to be presenting that map of potential to more and more people, because it's like the first stage of how they can start to unpack some of this stuff for themselves.
Yeah.
And so we look at that map, we look at the stopping strategy, and
Yeah.
that's kind of gets them on their way.
Yeah. So what kind of support can I help you with? Like if I know people that are looking for
If
what
you
you're
know
doing?
people with communities,
Okay.
where I can potentially add value or contribute to their community.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it for free. It's it's no
Yeah.
biggie. And then and just go from there, really.
Yeah. Do you want to be on podcasts or anything like that? Or
Anything. Yeah.
Okay.
That,
Because my friend in Canada, he's got a podcast that's in like the top 2.5%.
oh
And
wow.
he's got a large community of women in his network. So
Mhm.
I know his podcast like take a little while to get out, but if
Yeah.
you join his community, there's like, yeah, I mean I think there's about 1,000 people in there, but they're very engaged, that community. You know how sometimes you go in and people aren't engaged or it's just too big. But
Yeah.
his community is very engaged. So I'll connect you if you like to Brad.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just stay in touch. Let me know
Yes.
how things are going. I'm hoping to get over there at some point, but I'm just got a few logistics to work out, and then I will see how we stand.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yay.
Oh,
I love to like catch up with you, when you come over. That'll be
yeah,
awesome.
that'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then just keep me posted. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you, but I just think there's so much opportunity, like to just kind of dive in. And I I had a really interesting morning today. Like I was fully in my imposter syndrome. It's just horrible feeling. Um, you know, but it's been a gift as well to do this and to go on this journey, like meet people like you and be able to have these conversations. Like some
Yeah.
days, like today, I feel like I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to other people.
Yeah. I think what I
But
find with podcasts is your guest always has something for you, even though you might not think. Yeah, that's what I
mm,
found for every single podcast I did. Like it was like the next get like my guest was like there exactly at the right time that I needed them to give me a particular message or learn something new.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was, I actually recorded an episode this morning, just like doing it on the 5 talents. I don't know if you're familiar with that story from the
No.
Bible. No? So it's without going into it too much, but it's basically looking at how do we utilize our gifts and our talents, and that most people bury their talents and their gifts rather than utilizing them.
Yeah.
And so the end of the proverb in the Bible says that to those who have more will be given, and to those who have little, even what little they have will be taken away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was talking with my coach today, because what happens is that in the story, there's 3 servants. The last one just buries his talent, which is dollars, right?
Yeah.
And then gives back the master the exact amount that the master had given him, whereas the other two went and invested, did something, brought back more money. And maybe we should have started with that. That would have actually been good. And I think it's Think and Grow Rich, or The Science of Getting Rich, one of those books where Waddles talks about how when riches come, they will come in a direction that you least expect,
Yeah.
and they will come so fast you'll wonder where they've been all this time, and there's the Bible parable finishes with, as I said, those who have will be given more. But the reason the servant doesn't invest his talent is because he says, Father, you have reaped where you haven't sown, and gathered where there was no seed, so, and it's Wattles all over again,
Yeah.
and it's you getting the call from the lady when you take a day off doing sewing.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, it was just really, I've been stewing on that story for years. And then this morning I recorded it. And then this afternoon, after the session with the coach, it was like, oh, that's how I bring it all back together. So I think we're going to go re-record it.
Yeah.
To be able to bring in that element. But very, very powerful.
Yeah. I
I
love
just got
that.
to the point where I'm just frustrated. I just want to teach. I
Yeah.
just want,
Yeah. I know it's it's I think Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic says, like, what's the shit sandwich you're willing to eat, right? Like, we want to do all these things, but there's actually all this shit that we need to be okay to do
Yeah.
around it, like, yeah. But
Well, I guess it's like Esther Perel. She's the relationship lady. She works with Anthony Robbins quite a bit.
mm,
And she says there is no such thing as the one, in terms of relationships.
yeah,
And you're like, she's like, you choose this man, you're going to have this problem. You choose that man, you're going to have that problem. It's really a case of what problem do you watch? And that's how I hear your shit sandwich. It's a bit
Yeah.
like that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which shit sandwich would you like to eat? Yeah. Oh shit. Oh, whoops. I'm
You gotta
late for
go.
a meeting. Yeah, I need to go.
Right. I'm so sorry.
No.
I'll be in
Thank you
touch.
so much for this.
You're
It was really
welcome.
good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll
Thank
chat
you.
soon. Thank you.
Okay then.
All
Sounds
right.
good. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Leave me a comment and let me know what was your biggest takeaway. And if while you were listening, somebody popped into your mind and you know that they would benefit from listening to this, be sure to send the link to them. This series is just getting started, so go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll know when our next episode drops. If you liked what you heard and you want to know more, be sure to check out the show notes. And over the next coming weeks, I'll have some giveaways for you too. In the meantime, I want to thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.